Every morning, the moment you open your eyes, you are already carrying a heavy load without even realizing it. Before your feet touch the floor, your mind has quietly packed an invisible backpack. Inside it, the heavy weight of yesterday's regrets, the quiet anxiety of today's endless tasks, and the fear of a tomorrow that hasn't even arrived. You wake up exhausted by a day you haven't even lived yet. This constant need to hold on, to control every outcome, is silently stealing your peace. But what if you could simply put that backpack down? Welcome to Buddha Coha, your sanctuary for inner peace in a noisy world. Today, we are exploring a profound Buddhist truth. The less you care about what you cannot control, the happier you become. Try it and see. The illusion of control and the root of suffering. When we look honestly at our daily lives, why does it feel so hard sometimes? We often believe that our suffering is caused by the things happening outside of us. We blame the heavy traffic, the difficult coworker, the unexpected bill, or the partner who doesn't seem to understand us. We tell ourselves a very convincing story. If only this situation were different, if only that person would change, I would finally be at peace. But ancient Buddhist wisdom offers a completely different, almost radical perspective. The core teaching is straightforward, yet we rarely live by it in our fast-paced, modern world. Suffering does not come from the world itself. It comes from your attachment to how you think the world should be. Life itself is not inherently hard, it is simply life. It flows, it shifts, it gives, and it takes away. What makes life feel like a crushing weight is our endless resistance to it. We suffer because we cling. We hold on to people, to specific outcomes, and to the rigid image of how our lives are supposed to look. Imagine, for a moment, standing on a beautiful, quiet beach. You reach down and scoop up a handful of dry, white sand. If you hold your hand open, relaxed, with your palm facing the sky, the sand rests peacefully. You can carry it with you wherever you go. But the moment you become afraid of losing it, the moment you try to control it by clenching your fist tightly, what happens? The harder you squeeze, the faster the sand slips through your fingers. Your knuckles turn white, your hand cramps, and yet, you end up with less sand than you started with. This is exactly how we treat our lives. We grip everything too tightly. We are terrified of dropping even a single grain of our plans. Our bodies tense up, our minds become rigid, and every single step feels exhausting. But the moment you relax your grip, just enough to let life breathe, the weight immediately lifts. The sand hasn't changed. The circumstances haven't changed. Only your relationship to them has. When you sit quietly and observe your own mind, you will notice something fascinating. Your mind rarely worries because a situation is truly, immediately dangerous. It worries because it firmly believes that worrying is its job. Evolution has handed us a brain designed for survival, not for serenity. Think of your mind like an overzealous security guard who never learned how to clock out and rest. This guard patrols the empty hallways of your thoughts, shining a flashlight into dark corners, inventing problems just to stay busy. A delayed text message becomes a sign of abandonment. A minor criticism at work turns into a personal attack. An uncertain future morphs into a looming threat. Psychologists and researchers have found that about 90% of the things we spend our days worrying about never actually happen. Think about that for a second. 90%. You are spending your precious life force fighting imaginary ghosts in a future that does not even exist. And what about the 10% of challenges that do happen? You have probably noticed that the things you feared the most rarely occurred the way you pictured them. And the biggest challenges you have ever faced, they usually arrived completely out of nowhere, unannounced. So why do we keep torturing ourselves with what hasn't arrived? Why do we give doubt and fear a head start? To care less is not about giving up. It is about waking up from this exhausting illusion of control. You cannot control the ocean, but you can absolutely learn how to surf. The moment you stop demanding that, the universe perfectly aligns with your expectations, a massive, quiet space opens up inside you. You stop pouring your sacred energy into trying to manipulate outcomes that are entirely out of your hands. You begin to trust the flow. And in that surrender, you discover a profound, unshakable happiness. Intelligent letting go, what it really means to care less. When you hear the phrase, the less you care, the happier you become, your mind might immediately resist. In our modern society, we are conditioned to believe that worrying is the same thing as loving. We think that if we do not obsess over our children, stress about our careers, or agonize over our relationships, it somehow means we do not value them. We confuse anxiety with affection. We confuse clinging with commitment. Because of this, many people misunderstand the Buddhist concept of detachment. They think that letting go means becoming cold, distant, or indifferent. They imagine a life where you simply shrug your shoulders at everything, numb to the world, refusing to participate in the beauty and messiness of human existence. But true Buddhist wisdom teaches the exact opposite. Apathy is a defense mechanism. It is the ego shutting down because it is too afraid to feel. True detachment, on the other hand, is a state of profound grace. It is what we call intelligent letting go. Intelligent letting go means you still love, you still act, you still create, and you still move forward. You still show up for your life with a full heart. But, and this is the crucial shift, you stop pouring your sacred, vital energy into things that do not deserve your stress. You stop fighting reality. You do your very best, you draw the bow, you aim with all your skill, but once the arrow leaves your fingers, you let it go. You do not chase the arrow. You accept where it lands. To truly understand this, we only need to look at a classic Zen story that has been passed down through generations. Imagine two monks, an older master and his young student, traveling together on foot. They had taken strict vows, including a vow to never touch a woman. As they were walking down a muddy dirt road after a heavy rainstorm, they came across a shallow but fast-flowing river. Standing at the edge of the rushing water was a beautiful young woman dressed in a delicate, expensive silk kimono. She was visibly distressed, unable to cross the muddy river without ruining her clothes. Without a moment of hesitation, the older monk walked up to the woman, gently picked her up, carried her across the swirling water, and set her down safely on the dry bank on the other side. They bowed to each other, and the two monks continued on their journey in silence. As the hours passed, the younger monk grew increasingly agitated. His mind was racing. He was shocked, angry, and confused. How could the master do that? He broke his sacred vow. He touched a woman. He carried her. The younger monk let this thought consume him. It festered in his mind with every step they took, building into a heavy, suffocating resentment. Finally, after miles of walking, the younger monk could not hold it in any longer. He burst out, "Master, we are monks. We are forbidden to even look at women, let alone touch them. How could you pick up that beautiful woman and carry her across the river?" The older monk stopped walking. He turned to his young student, looked at him with gentle, compassionate eyes, and smiled softly. "Brother," the older monk said quietly, "I left that woman at the riverbank hours ago. Why are you still carrying her? How many people, how many situations, how many past arguments are you still carrying with you right now? The event itself may have ended hours, days, or even years ago. The river is miles behind you. The harsh words from a coworker, the sudden end of a relationship, the mistake you made at work last Tuesday, these things are in the past. Physically, they are over. But mentally, you are still carrying them on your back. You are still replaying the arguments in your head. You are still suffering the insult. You are still feeding the pain. When we say, care less, this is exactly what we mean. It means realizing that you have a choice to put the burden down. Intelligent letting go is the moment you realize that holding on to resentment, regret, or anxiety does not change the past, and it certainly does not protect your future. It only ruins your present moment. It exhausts you. When you decide to care less about the things you cannot change, you free up a massive amount of internal space. You suddenly have the energy to care more about the things that actually matter. You have the energy to notice the warmth of the morning sun, the taste of your tea, and the smile of someone you love. You stop being a prisoner to your own heavy thoughts. You simply set the burden down on the riverbank, and you keep walking. The empty boat philosophy. Stop absorbing the world's noise. As we journey through our days, we don't just suffer from carrying our own invisible backpacks. We also suffer deeply because we have developed a deeply ingrained habit of picking up the heavy baggage of everyone around us. Have you ever walked into a room feeling perfectly fine, deeply centered and calm, only to have someone else's bad mood completely drain your energy within minutes? Someone speaks to you with a harsh tone, a stranger cuts you off in traffic, or a coworker sends a passive-aggressive message. Instantly, your peace shatters. You absorb their stress. You take their harsh words personally. You spend the rest of the day replaying the interaction in your head, defending yourself in imaginary arguments, and letting their toxicity poison your inner well. Most of us walk through life like emotional sponges. A sponge does not discriminate, it simply absorbs whatever it touches. If you drop a sponge into muddy water, it becomes heavy, dark, and saturated with the mess. But what if you didn't have to be a sponge? What if you could move through a chaotic, noisy world without absorbing a single drop of its toxicity? To understand how to protect your peace, we must look at a beautiful ancient story from the Taoist philosopher Chuang Tzu. It is known as the story of the empty boat. Imagine you are a fisherman living many centuries ago. You wake up long before the sun rises. The world is perfectly quiet. You walk down to the edge of a vast, tranquil lake, step into your small wooden boat, and begin to row out into the center. The water is as smooth as glass. A thick, white morning mist covers everything, wrapping the world in a soft, heavy blanket of silence. You close your eyes, take a deep breath of the crisp air, and drop your line into the water, feeling completely at one with the universe. Suddenly, bang! Out of the dense fog, another boat violently slams directly into the side of yours. You are jolted. Your peaceful morning is instantly ruined. You peer into the thick white mist and see the dark outline of the other boat. Immediately, a hot surge of anger rises in your chest. Your heart starts pounding. Your blood boils. You stand up, grip the edge of your boat, and start shouting across the water. Watch where you are going. Are you blind? What is wrong with you? How could you be so incredibly careless? You are deeply offended. You feel attacked. You are ready for a fight. But then, a gentle morning breeze rolls across the lake. The mist slowly begins to clear. The white veil lifts, and you look closer at the boat that just hit you. There is no one there. The boat is empty. It had simply slipped its moorings in the night and drifted aimlessly across the lake, carried purely by the wind and the random currents, until it happened to bump into you. Notice what happens in your mind and your body at that exact moment of realization. The anger instantly evaporates. The tension leaves your shoulders. Your breathing slows down. Why? The physical event was the same. Your boat was still hit. Your peaceful morning was still interrupted. But your reaction completely transformed because you realized there was no malicious intent. You do not yell at an empty boat. You do not take it personally. You simply reach out with your oar, gently push the empty boat away, and return to your peaceful morning. When a person hits our boat, we get angry because we think they aimed for us. We think they did it on purpose to disrespect us, to hurt us, or to undermine us. But the profound truth of human nature is this: almost every person you meet who is angry, bitter, rude, or toxic is simply an empty boat. They are entirely unmoored. They are being blindly driven by the winds of their own past trauma, the rough currents of their own stress, and the heavy drift of their own unhealed pain. When someone criticizes you harshly, it is not about you. It is an echo of their own inner turmoil. When someone acts with intense jealousy or anger, it is their own storm spilling over the edges of their mind. They are not attacking you. They are simply colliding with you because they are adrift in their own darkness. To care less is to stop putting a pilot in every empty boat you encounter. The next time someone speaks to you in anger, or a situation threatens to steal your joy, visualize that empty wooden boat on the misty lake. Do not become a sponge. Do not absorb their muddy water. Instead, become a clear mirror. A mirror reflects whatever stands before it, but it remains completely untouched, untainted, and unchanged by the image. You can acknowledge their pain, you can even feel compassion for their suffering, but you do not have to let it enter your sacred internal home. You simply use your mental oar, gently push the empty boat away, and return to the deep, still waters of your own peace. If you are finding a sense of relief in this moment, or if you have realized it is time to set down your own heavy burdens today, please take a gentle pause to subscribe to Buddha Coha and like this video. It is a small, quiet act that helps this sanctuary grow, allowing us to share this peace with others who might be silently struggling with their own heavy loads right now. Now, let us continue our journey together. Detachment as the highest form of love. Up until now, we have talked about letting go of our worries, our need to control outcomes, and the toxic energy of others. We have learned how to avoid becoming a sponge for the world's negativity. But what about the beautiful things in life? What about the people we deeply cherish? Our partners, our children, our closest friends. In our modern culture, we are often taught a very dangerous myth. We are taught that attachment is the same thing as love. We believe that to love someone means to worry about them constantly. We think that if we are not agonizing over our child's future or feeling fiercely possessive of our partner, we somehow do not love them enough. We hold on to the people in our lives with a tight, anxious grip, terrified that if we loosen our hold even for a second, we will lose them. But Buddhist wisdom gently reminds us that clinging is not love. Clinging is fear masquerading as love. When you tell someone, "I cannot live without you," that is not a romantic statement. That is a statement of deep attachment. It places an enormous, suffocating burden on the other person to be the sole source of your happiness. True Buddhist attachment is not a lack of love. It is, in fact, the highest, purest, and most difficult form of love. It is the ability to love someone completely, without the ego's desperate need to own them, control them, or mold them into your expectations. To visualize this profound truth, imagine you are walking through a lush, vibrant garden on a quiet afternoon. As you stroll down the path, you spot a magnificent flower. Its colors are breathtaking, and its fragrance fills the air. If you simply like the flower, your immediate, ego-driven instinct is to pluck it. You want to possess its beauty. You want to take it home, put it in a glass vase on your kitchen table, and call it yours. But the moment you snap the stem, you have severed the flower from its life source. You have claimed it, but in doing so, you have guaranteed that it will soon wither and die. You loved the idea of the flower, but you did not love the flower itself. But if you truly love the flower, you do not pluck it. You leave it exactly where it is, rooted deep in the earth. You admire its beauty in its natural state. You return every day to water it. You make sure it receives enough sunlight. You nurture it, and most importantly, you allow it to grow naturally, even if it grows in a direction you did not expect, or blooms in a way you did not anticipate. You love it without needing to own it. How often do we treat the people we love like flowers we want to pluck? We try to force them into the rigid vases of our own expectations. We want our children to follow the exact career path we designed for them. We want our partners to behave in ways that never trigger our own insecurities. We create a mental script for how our loved ones should act, and when they deviate from that script, we suffer deeply. We become angry, disappointed, and heartbroken. But that heartbreak does not come from their actions. It comes from the breaking of our own attachment to the script. Intelligent letting go in relationships means saying, "I love you enough to let you be exactly who you are." It means offering your support, your presence, and your deep affection, but releasing the desperate need to control their journey. When you love with detachment, a heavy, suffocating weight lifts from the relationship. You become a safe harbor for the people you love, rather than a cage. You allow them the freedom to make their own mistakes, to learn their own lessons, and to walk their own path. And the most beautiful paradox of all is this: when you stop trying to hold on so tightly, people naturally want to stay closer to you. When you love without chains, your relationships stop draining your energy and start nourishing your soul. You finally understand that you can care deeply, love fiercely, and remain completely at peace within yourself. Practical wisdom: how to rewire your mind today. Up until this point, we have explored some deeply profound ideas. We have looked at the invisible backpack we carry, the illusion of holding tightly onto sand, the empty boat on the misty lake, and the beautiful flower we must not pluck. But understanding these concepts intellectually is only the first step. Philosophy without practice is merely entertainment. To truly transform your life, you must bring this wisdom down from the mind and weave it into the very fabric of your daily routine. How do we actually do this on a regular Tuesday morning when the alarm doesn't go off, the traffic is terrible, and the world feels overwhelming? How do we rewire a brain that has spent decades practicing how to worry? Here are 3 practical, deeply transformative ways to practice intelligent letting go, starting today. The first practice is mastering the sacred pause. Most of our suffering comes from our immediate, knee-jerk reactions to life. Someone says something offensive, and instantly, we fire back. An unexpected challenge arises, and instantly, we spiral into panic. We become entirely at the mercy of our external triggers. But between the moment something happens to you, and the moment you react to it, there is a tiny, invisible space. In that space lies your ultimate freedom. Starting today, whenever you feel that hot surge of anger, anxiety, or the desperate need to control a situation, do not act. Just for 3 seconds, do absolutely nothing. Do not hit send on that angry email. Do not snap back with a harsh word. Simply stop, feel your feet on the ground, and take one deep, conscious breath. This sacred pause interrupts the automatic programming of your mind. It gives you the distance to look at the situation and ask, is this an empty boat? Do I need to pick up this heavy burden? That 3-second pause is the doorway to inner peace. The second practice is mindful observation. Earlier, we talked about the mind being an overzealous security guard, constantly inventing imaginary threats. When these anxious thoughts arise, our first instinct is usually to fight them. We tell ourselves, stop worrying. Stop being anxious. But fighting a thought only feeds it more energy. Resistance creates persistence. Instead of fighting, become the silent observer. Imagine your mind is the vast, blue sky. Your thoughts, your worries, and your fears are simply clouds passing through. Some clouds are small, white, and fluffy. Some are dark, heavy, and full of storms. But no matter how dark the cloud is, it can never stain the sky. It can never break the sky. It simply passes through. When a heavy thought enters your mind today, do not wrestle with it. Just observe it. Say to yourself quietly, there is a worried thought about tomorrow. Watch it drift across the sky of your awareness, and let it go. You do not have to invite every thought in for tea. You do not have to believe everything your mind produces. The third and final practice is feeding the right wolf. There is a famous piece of wisdom that says inside every human being, there is a constant, quiet battle between 2 wolves. One wolf represents fear, anxiety, resentment, and the exhausting need to control everything. The other wolf represents peace, acceptance, compassion, and intelligent letting go. Which wolf wins the battle? The answer is simple, the one you feed. But how do we feed them? We feed them with our attention. Where your attention goes, your energy flows. If you spend your evening obsessively scrolling through negative news, replaying an argument, or imagining the worst possible future, you are feeding the wolf of anxiety a massive feast. If, instead, you choose to bring your gentle attention to the present moment, to the warmth of your coffee cup, the sound of the birds outside, or the calm rhythm of your own breathing, you are starving the anxiety and feeding the wolf of peace. Every single moment of your day is a choice of where to place your attention. Choose to feed your peace. Rewiring your mind will not happen overnight. You will still have moments where you grip the sand too tightly. You will still occasionally yell at an empty boat. When you do, please be incredibly gentle with yourself. Forgive yourself quickly. Letting go is not a destination you arrive at, it is a beautiful, daily practice. In the end, true happiness is not about adding more perfect conditions to your life. It is not about finally getting every single detail under your strict control. True happiness is actually about subtraction. It is the quiet act of taking off that invisible backpack. It is opening your hands to let the sand rest, and allowing the empty boats of the world to drift past you without disturbing your inner peace. You do not need to change the entire world to be happy. You just need to change how you hold it. The less you care about what you cannot control, the more space you create for the beauty that is already right here in front of you. Try it, and see. If this message brought you a sense of relief today, please subscribe to Buddha Coha and like this video so we can share this peace with others who might be carrying a heavy load. And before you go, leave a comment below saying, "I choose peace over control," as your quiet commitment to yourself today. Thank you for walking this path with me. May your mind be light, your heart free, and your journey peaceful. Namaste.